The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 2. Each state party to the present covenant undertakes to respect and to ensure to all individuals. Now notice who is the player, who is the subject or the character being mentioned. They use the word individual. So, within its territory and subject to its jurisdiction, the rights recognized in the present covenant. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article number 2. When you look into it, it states that each state party, which includes Canada, because Canada, as we know, is a state party, they are a signatory to this covenant, they are under the obligations. Now it continues to read, it says, each state party to the present covenant undertakes to respect and to ensure to all individuals within its territory, okay, and subject to its jurisdiction, the rights recognized in the present covenant. Now notice the character or the player that they brought forth here. They used the word individuals. Individuals. And they said that Canada undertakes to respect and to ensure to all individuals the rights that have been brought forth in the covenant itself. Now, in its territory, in Canada, you can be a man, a human being, or you can be a person. Those two designations. Now, as a person, you are subject to the state's jurisdiction. The state party, Canada. The domestic laws, you are subject to them. As a man, guess what? You're still subjected to the laws of Canada as a human being. Some are going to say, whoa, no, free man on the land, free man, nothing rules me. No, I'm not subjected. Just think like that, that's fine. But as a man, you're still subjected to the domestic laws within Canada. And you want to know which domestic laws you're still subjected to? The common law. The common law. Now, a lot of people are teaching that, the only law you have to abide by is common law. And that's good. A man does need to abide by common law. And common law is expressed within the Constitution Act of Canada and the International Covenants. That's why here, when they draw the player out, they use the word individual. Because within the word individual, right, we can have the man, we can have the person who is the citizen. But by using that word, and you qualify it here, now you're opening up two different, if you will say, jurisdictions, right? Because the man is supposed to be free from enactments, regulations, and statute law. Those laws that have been given force of law, which apply, upon persons, upon Canadian citizens. The man's supposed to be free. The human being is free from that. And the person has to obey those enactments. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 3. The states, parties to the present covenant, undertake to ensure the equal right of men and women to the enjoyment of all the civil and political rights set forth in the present covenant. When we look into the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 3, you see how it's read. It states that state parties undertake to ensure the equal right of men and women. Notice who's being brought up now. Men and women. To the enjoyment of all civil and political rights set forth in the covenant itself. So, the state parties undertake to ensure the equal right of men and women. The guaranteed right that are mentioned. Those rights that are set forth in the covenant itself. Well, the state party Canada has an obligation to a man or to a woman. You're seeing that here. A man or to a woman, to make sure that they fulfill the obligations that have been brought forth within the covenant to a man and a woman. Now, there's no other qualification here. No other qualification for the man and the woman. This state, Canada, must provide all the rights and freedoms with no exception. No exception. But to who? What individual? To the man or to the woman? Now, the man or the woman who is on the territory of Canada, if you will, the landmass, who is subjected to the jurisdiction of Canada. How? Through common law and not through statutory law or regulations, but nevertheless, don't kill, don't steal. Come on the land here in Canada and kill and see what happens. Come on the land here in Canada and steal and see what happens. Why? Because the expression of that is included in some of our laws, but nevertheless, the man and the woman, with no exceptions, has the right to all the rights and freedoms that are in the covenants. Now, let's look what else it says. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 5. Nothing in the present covenant may be interpreted as implying for any state, group, or person any right to engage in any activity or perform any act aimed at the destruction of any of the rights and freedoms recognized herein, or at their limitation to a greater extent than is provided for in the present covenant. The International Covenant on Social, Economic, and Cultural Rights, Article 4. The states, parties to the present covenant, recognize that, in the enjoyment of those rights provided by the state, in conformity with the present covenant, the state may subject such rights only to such limitations as are determined by law, only insofar as this may be compatible with the nature of these rights, and solely for the purpose of promoting the general welfare in a democratic society. We see within these covenants the following. In the enjoyment of the rights and freedoms provided by the state. We'll stop right there. The rights and freedoms now that are being given to whoever this is being given by who? It's being provided by the state. So we change that word here to Canada. So now it's no longer the covenant that are granting the rights and freedoms as it grants it for the man and woman, but it's the state that is providing the rights and freedoms. Now, in the enjoyment of the rights and freedoms provided for by the state, in conformity with the covenant. So they're saying that the domestic law, or the rights and freedoms that they're granting the persons, the Canadian citizens, it's supposed to be in conformity with the covenant. And it says that these rights and freedoms, okay, the state, Canada, may subject such rights and freedoms to limitations. So they can take the rights and freedoms that are there, that are expressed in the covenant, that they cannot limit upon a man or a woman, and they can subject it to limitations. How? It says solely in a democratic society. That's how they can do it. So as a person, again, a Canadian citizen, CC, the state party, Canada, limits your rights and freedoms in their democratic society. The covenants, they grant the state parties the right to subject their citizens' freedoms in their democratic society. However, that is the only way. Because within the covenants, when you read it, it says that the only way that these rights and freedoms that are mentioned here, which apply for a man or a woman, which grant men and women freedom from all of that enactment and that commercial garbage that's going on, the only way that they can be limited, the only extent that they can be limited, is through all this. By the state providing for its persons in the democratic society the rights and freedoms watered down. And that's exactly what's transpiring. Because you see, whether you're a man, again, or a person here in Canada, and now there's going to be some that say Canada's just waters, we're under maritime law, have fun. But whether you're a man or a person, that Canadian citizen, you're still on the territory. You're still on the territory of Canada. And I know the Interpretation Act says Canada includes water, but you're still on the territory. Therefore, being on the territory, you're subject to its jurisdiction. Now the question is, under what degree are we subject to its jurisdiction? As contained in the international covenants, the man and the woman, his rights and freedoms cannot be limited. His rights and freedoms cannot be placed in all this. So the man is safe. Now it's the person, the Canadian citizen that is a subject, a servant of the state, who gets his rights and freedoms limited and taken away. The state party, Canada, the one that has the jurisdiction, the territory, has the individuals upon it. And those individuals are guaranteed the rights and freedoms that are in the covenants. Guaranteed. And there's an obligation upon the state party. Now, in the individuals, there's men and women. Men and women who have these rights and freedoms. And these men and women, they cannot be limited. Their rights and freedoms cannot be limited. Now, these individuals as persons or Canadian citizens have a limitation of rights and freedoms. And that's how it's applying. You see here, these rights and freedoms, they're provided to here, to the person, by the state. It's supposed to be in conformity with the covenant, but it's not, because they are allowed to limit the rights and freedoms. But it clearly says in the covenant that these rights and freedoms are provided for by the state. However, these rights and freedoms for the man and the woman are not provided by the state. They're provided by the covenant itself. And the state, Canada, is obligated to respect them when the man and the woman operate under them.